Hello and welcome back. Today's video is going to be a little different, a little more chill, a little bit more relaxed. We're going to make an advanced grid material that you might use for your level blockouts and stuff. So before, if we've got the textures for your actual assets, you can make this material, add some different colors and different roughness values and that kind of thing, and sort of get a feel for how light is going to be interacting with your models before the actual textures have been provided to you. So all we're going to need to get started is just a little collection of textures here, and I've made ourselves a special little cube. I'll pack all of these things into a care package for you guys and a download link in the description, and also the material functions that we made back in my material functions video. So if you haven't seen that yet, definitely check that one out. I'll leave a link to that in the description as well. But for now, let's just right click, make ourselves a new material, and we'll call it grid blockouts _ matte. And then we'll open it up. I'm just going to stick it up here. Oh, actually, first we'll drag in our textures. There we go. And then I'll snap it up to the top there. So what we've got here is a 2x2 normal map, as well as a little masking texture here, and just a straight up 2x2 grid. And they just look like this. It's just a very simple 2x2 grid, and generated a normal map from that previous one, so we get a bit more bumpiness, a bit more depth. And what we'll do here is just duplicate these texture nodes twice a piece. There we go, so that we have 3. The reason for this will become clear in a sec. And then what we'll do, we'll hold in U and click to get our texture coordinates. Then we'll hold in S and click to get a scalar parameter, which we will call UV scale. Set this to 1. And then a multiply node by holding in M and clicking the graph. So we'll hook this up. And then what we'll do is grab these 2 nodes and duplicate these once for each of our pairs of textures. And we'll call this scalar parameter here. This will be UV multi 1. And I'll copy that text so I can use it in these other 2. Multi 2. And then multi 3. Okay, and we'll connect our little texture coordinates nodes here into the A value of our multiply. There we go, and last one. And then our results of our multipliers go into the normals and the diffuse of our grid. Pretty straightforward. This just allows us to control the density of the UV values of our textures. From here we can do some tricky things. In fact, actually what I'll do is I'll connect up this multiplier to our mask as well, just directly, because we'll use this just as our what do you call it, tint, our two-tone tint for our blockout, and we'll sort of move on from there. So we'll start with our base color. Let's hold in 3 and click to get a 3 vector. This is a color node that we'll use just to generate a color. Obviously, there's just a color value here, so we can set this to whatever we want. We might make make a blue. So we'll set our values down just like that. And we can right click this, convert it to a parameter, and I'm going to call this one tint 1. Then we'll duplicate this, and we're going to call it tint 2. So one for the black and one for the white of our masking texture here. And tint 2, bring this up, we'll just make this white, just like that. And hold in L and click the graph to get ourselves a linear interpolate node. And what this will do is take in an alpha value, which will be a value from 0 to 1, like from black to white or white to black, and use that to tell us how much of A or B is going to be displayed in this output. So we'll plug in the result of our texture sample here into the alpha. Tint 2 will be B, and tint 1 will be A. And then we can... Well, the next thing we'll do is our lines. So we'll hold in L and click. The result of this lerp will be our B value. I'm going to duplicate another one of these tints here. Make this one black. There we go. And then it's going to be our line color. Cool. So that'll be our A value. And the alpha of this will be when we'll get another multiply node. We'll multiply our diffusers together like that. We'll grab ourselves another multiply and multiply it by the last one, and this will be the alpha of our lerp here. And actually, while I'm here, these 2, we'll set this guy to 4, and we'll set UV multi 2 to 2, just so that we see a different thing when we preview. And if we start previewing now, and we'll preview on a plane, there you go. So you can get a feeling for how this is going to look in the final thing. So we're sort of doubling the density of these lines with each of our 3 texture samples, getting this nice grid effect that goes from thick lines to medium lines down to thin lines. It's a cool little effect. All we're doing is just multiplying values together. So it's pretty straightforward. The next thing we'll do is, what I'll do is hold in T and click to get a texture sample. And we'll use one of the textures from my noise pack. It'll just be a noise _M, which is just, if we magnify it here, just in my texture pack. This is available on Gumroad. It has lots and lots of different normal maps. Where are they? So we got normal maps, we got masks, and we got meshes. It's well worth the buy, good for practice, good for making all sorts of crazy things. So you can check that out on Gumroad. I'll put a link down to it in the description of the video. And this noise texture here, we'll need our texture coordinates. I'm just going to copy these, paste them up here. This UV scale node, we'll change this to, this will be UV noise scale. And this will plug into our noise texture, just like that. From here, what do we need? Well, we want to be able to control the amount of noise, because the noise is just to break up the surface a bit, so it's not too, so it's not too flat, so it has a bit of variation in it. We'll grab ourselves another multiplier, hook this up, and another scalar, hold an S and click. This will be our noise overlay. So manipulating this value will control how much noise is being displayed over the top of our material. We'll set this to something low, something like 0.1. Just for the time being. We can tweak all these in an instance afterwards. And then out of our multiply here, we'll come out into a blend node. We want blend screen. These blend nodes, by the way, if anyone with a sort of Photoshop experience might recognize some of these. They work a lot like layer blending in Photoshop. So if you want any more experience on what might happen when you use these, just open up Photoshop and combine a couple of pictures and see what each of these blends do. Or you can do it in UE4 as well, just to feed in some textures here and experiment with what things look like. For now though, we're going to use the blend screen, and I'm going to make a little room here, move our noise out the way. The result of this lerp is going to be our base. And we can right click this and start previewing. You can see that we got a lot of noise there in our texture. This is because tint 2 is black. I want to set this to white, and then we should see on our preview when it loads. There we go. So that's quite a bit better. We can drop down the noise a little bit further. If we go 0.05, I'll make it a little bit less invasive. Liking the look of it so far though, so let's stop previewing that, and we can plug this straight into our base color. I'll move this over here to the side a bit. So it's looking a bit more complicated than really that it is. Like, all we're doing is just lerping between some things, multiplying some values, combining a couple of different effects, and we have our base color node. The next thing we'll do is metallic and roughness. So we can control the metallic and the roughness values of each of our two-tone tints over here. And the way that we'll do that is by coming out of our mask over here. I'll make a little bit of room. And in fact, we can break this out for here, because I'm just going to come out of this into a multiply and make ourselves another scalar. We'll call this tint strength, and it'll be a value of 1. And this will plug into B, just like that. And then the result of this multiply into our alpha. And then out of this multiply again, what we want is a component mask, because we don't need the whole RGB value of this texture. All we want is the 1. We just want our red. I mean, any one of these, red, green, or blue, is going to produce the same result here, because it's just straight white or black. But what we want to do, we want to be affecting our roughness and our metallic. They won't handle 3 vectors. They only want to be multiplied by a 2 vector, just like this. So out of our mask, let's get ourselves a lerp, one for metallic and another lerp for roughness. We need some scalars here, so we'll get a few of those. We want metallic tint 1. We'll duplicate that and make it metallic tint 2. Set these both to, we'll keep them both at 0 for the time being, I think. Let's see, so we'll make ourselves a couple more. Roughness tint 1. We'll duplicate this guy and make him roughness tint 2. And these two can both be set to 1, because that'll give us the sort of matte finish. It won't be too reflective, and we can play with all of these values afterwards in the material instance, and we can hook these guys up, A and B, then A and B, and the result of our mask here as the alpha for both. Following this, we want to exclude the lines from it, like our line calculations here, because the lines will need to be a little bit separate. They're going to be affected by the normal map. We don't really need them to be, the same kind of metallic or rough as the actual tint. So we'll come out of our multipliers here into another component mask. Make sure it's just set to R. Hold in M and click. We'll make 2 multipliers. This component mask will be the B value, and the ellipse will be A, and then we can plug in the result of our multiplier into metallic and then into roughness. So this will handle our metallic and our roughness values. As you can see, like the lines are showing up as more reflective than the actual tint. But again, these values can all be tweaked later. So we're just going to set this up and then play around with our material instance once we're done. The other thing that we can do with these lines is make them glow if we wanted to. If we come out of here into a 1-, because at the moment the lines are black and multiplying anything by black creates nothing. So we'll invert this with a 1- node, which just takes in any value, inverts it, and then gives you an output, which we'll plug into this multiplier, get ourselves another scalar, and we'll call this one our glow crank, which we'll just leave at 0 for the time being, and this gets plugged into our emissive. So it's not very complicated, the actual process, what we're doing. It's just starting to look a bit a bit unwieldy, a bit big, but that's okay. We can make this work going forward. The next thing is our normal maps. So we can use our material functions here. So if I type in material and get a material function call, it'll look a bit strange until we actually set the function, which will be our combined normals material function, and then we'll just feed in our normal map. So we'll start with the first one. The top one will be over here. It's in normal 2 at the top, I guess. And the second one will be normal 1. Then we'll duplicate this node. Our result will be the top one here, and our third normal map will be the normal 1 of our function there. Then let's hold in 3 and click for another color. We want it to be blue, because this will represent the depth of our normal map. The blue channel in a normal map is the depth, the degree to which it shows up. Then we just hold an L, get ourselves a lerp. Our blue here is going to be A. Our B value is going to be our regular normals coming out of our material functions there. And then we hold an S and click for a scalar, and this will be our normal strength. So a lot of these things you will have probably seen me do in like a lot of my other material videos. Carbon fiber or car paint, the Fortnite Galaxy skin. I don't know. I've done a lot of material videos. It's definitely worth checking them out if any of this doesn't make sense to you. I think I explain things a bit better, especially the PBR masterclass video. That's where I cover, I think, all of these things. I think all of this is covered in that video. So if you'd like a better explanation, definitely check that out after you're done watching this video. So the result of our lerp here goes straight into the normal input of our final material. And then when the preview loads here, you can see that now we've got that bumpiness that the light is going to be responding to. And if you want to move the light in the preview here, just hold in the L key and then move your mouse around, and you can see how light is interacting with your material in the preview. The last thing that we can do with our normals here is come out of our lerp here. Let's mask this like we did before with a component mask, but we'll get just the blue channel. We just want the depth, and then I'm going to copy these 2 nodes, a multiplier and a scalar. We'll rename our scalar, we'll call it the AO strength, and this will set to 1. The B, our mask here will go into our multiplier, and then the result of our multiplier goes into ambient occlusion. Alright, so I think that covers everything. It's a bit of a big material, but it's very, very versatile. We could do a lot of things with it, and it's going to look great on your basic models before you get the textures in, and you can actually see how your scene is going to look. So to recap here, we have a noise overlay for our color. We have our tints here working off our mask, the line color off this lerp, which we're multiplying out of our textures. So I'll just organize these things so it's a bit more clear. So this handles the tinting and the lines. Then we have our noise overlay Both of these feed into a screen blend node, which goes into base color. Then we perform some very simple, very basic lerping between two values to get our metallic and our roughness also being fed in from our tint here to divide up our tint 1 and our tint 2. And they just plug straight into metallic and then into roughness. We have a glow crank here for our emissive if you choose to use that. And then our normals. We're combining normals using our special material function from our material function video, controlling the strength of our normals by multiplying against, or by lerping against this blue color, and then just feeding it straight into our normal. And finally, for ambient occlusion, we just take the B channel from our normals, our normal calculations, multiply it by our scalar, and add that to AO. And we're pretty much done. So let's save this. It might take a second to save. And then back in the editor, if we go back up to, where were we? Materials. And right-click on our material here, we'll create a material instance. And then with our cube, our special material cube, I'll set this on the ground there, just like that. So it's currently got a nicely unwrapped UV setup on it. And you can see how the world grid material is nice and symmetrical. So it should look really good once we drop our material instance on it. And there we go. Awesome. All right, so let's open this up and play with some values. So there's a lot that we can do here with this. We have a lot of these checkboxes here. So I'm just going to turn all of these on. And there we go. And we'll bring this over so that we can read a bit better what's happening over here. And now we have all the control that we want over every aspect of this material. For example, our UV scale, we can crank up or down. The UVs are set up in such a way that if you use whole numbers, it will always be totally symmetrical. So we'll just leave that at, we'll put it at 2, I think. I quite like that. We have our tint strength, which if we drop down, it'll revert to our tint 1. Or we can crank this up and do whatever else we want. So we can eliminate the tint and just make it all one single block color. Obviously, we can change our color here to whatever we want. Let's make a nice sort of orange. And then I'll put our tint back up. And then our blue, or rather our tint 2 can be an interesting looking purple, whatever we want to do. Might just reset that to white. I quite like the contrast of a saturated color against white. And then we got things like metallic. So we can make one aspect of it, or both. We can give them metallic reflections. Or with our roughness, we can set our roughness down, make our surfaces really reflective. We can cut out the normals. We can make the surfaces entirely smooth by setting our normal strength to 0. That way they'll appear totally flat, totally smooth and shiny, if you so wanted to do that. Where's our strength? Reset this back up. Glow crank, we can make the lines glow if we want, and the line color is always going to be just a bright white, or if we set it to 0, it'll be a neutral sort of black color. The ambient occlusion will just work on its own. It'll be more visible when there's more lights affecting, and it'll be affecting sort of the gaps between the in the lines. So that basically wraps it up. So we have this nice, highly versatile. Oh, and we can probably change these. So if I manipulating these UV multi-values, we could change the density of our lines. In fact, we can just set just a simple 2x2 if we wanted to. The UV scale is going to be controlling our sort of tint scale here, but we can go back to our material and just move this out of the way so we can see, and just duplicate these nodes and, or rather, these two nodes, and hook them up into our tint here. So we just have that extra separate little piece of control. The other thing we can do is our noise overlay. We can crank this up if we wanted to, make some different effects there. And obviously, if I get another cube here, I'll set that down to floor level, duplicate this instance, drag this on. We can do this as many times as we want. Jump back here. So if you need, different colors on different aspects of your scene, then you can duplicate and work with this as much as you possibly want to. So, I hope you guys had fun. I hope this wasn't too dull for a lot of you. I hope it's not a terribly boring result. I quite like having materials like this just for things like, for example, we can add this to any other objects. And as long as they're unwrapped properly, you can get a good idea of how things are going to look from a distance or when there's lights applied to them, that kind of thing. And it can be very, very handy for your blockouts. So, if you don't like looking at the default world grid material, which I know I don't, so something like this can really sort of spice up your workflow. Hope you guys had fun. Hope this wasn't too dull, and there'll be more things coming in the near future, so I will catch you guys in the next one. Cheers!